For nearly half a century, two global superpowers stood locked in a tense standoff, never fighting each other directly, yet threatening the entire planet with nuclear annihilation. Fought through spies, proxy wars, and a race to space, this conflict shaped the modern world without a single direct battle between its main rivals. This is the Cold War. Explained. A like helps the channel grow. Your subscription helps keep history from being forgotten. Origins of the Cold War. The Cold War emerged from growing tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union following World War II. These two nations represented fundamentally opposing political and economic ideologies. The United States championed capitalism and democratic governance across the Western world. The Soviet Union promoted communism, advocating centralized state control over economic and political life. Wartime alliance between these powers quickly dissolved once their common enemy was defeated. Post-war negotiations at conferences like Yalta and Potsdam revealed deepening ideological divisions. The Soviet Union sought to expand communist influence across Eastern Europe. The United States adopted a strategy called containment, aiming to prevent further communist expansion. Mutual distrust and competing global ambitions quickly escalated into open ideological rivalry. This tense standoff would define international relations for the next several decades. The Iron Curtain and a divided Europe. Following World War II, Europe became sharply divided between Western democracies and Soviet-controlled territories. Winston Churchill famously described this division using the phrase Iron Curtain. Eastern European nations increasingly fell under Soviet political and military influence. Germany itself was divided into separate Western and Eastern occupation zones. Berlin, though located within Soviet-controlled East Germany, was similarly divided among occupying powers. In 1948, the Soviet Union attempted to blockade Western access to Berlin. Western powers responded with the dramatic Berlin Airlift, supplying the city entirely by air. This successful airlift forced the Soviets to eventually lift their blockade. NATO, a Western military alliance, formed in 1949 to counter potential Soviet aggression. The Soviet Union subsequently established its own military alliance, known as the Warsaw Pact. The nuclear arms race. Following World War II, the United States initially held a significant nuclear weapons advantage. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its own atomic weapon, ending American nuclear monopoly. This development dramatically escalated tensions, sparking an intense nuclear arms race. Both superpowers rapidly developed increasingly powerful thermonuclear hydrogen bombs. This competition led to the doctrine known as mutually assured destruction, or MAD. Both nations understood that a full nuclear conflict would result in catastrophic mutual devastation. Massive stockpiles of nuclear weapons were built, alongside advanced missile delivery systems. Civil defense programs emerged, attempting to prepare civilian populations for potential nuclear attack. This constant nuclear threat created widespread public anxiety throughout much of the Cold War period. Despite numerous close calls, this nuclear standoff paradoxically helped prevent direct superpower conflict. Proxy wars, Korea and Vietnam. Rather than fighting directly, the superpowers often supported opposing sides in regional conflicts. In 1950, Communist North Korea invaded South Korea, prompting significant international intervention. The United States led a United Nations coalition supporting South Korea against communist forces. China, aligned with the Soviet Union, provided crucial support to North Korean forces. The Korean War ended in 1953 with an armistice, leaving Korea divided along similar lines today. Vietnam became another significant Cold War battleground during the 1960s and 1970s. the United States supported South Vietnam against communist North Vietnamese forces. This costly, controversial conflict resulted in significant American casualties and domestic political division. North Vietnam, backed by Soviet and Chinese support, eventually achieved victory in 1975. These proxy conflicts demonstrated how Cold War rivalry frequently played out through regional warfare.
The space race. Cold War competition extended dramatically beyond Earth, into the exploration of outer space. In 1957, the Soviet Union successfully launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite. This achievement shocked the United States, sparking intense competition in space technology. In 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to travel into space. The United States responded by significantly increasing investment in its own space program. President John F. Kennedy famously committed America to landing astronauts on the moon. In 1969, NASA's Apollo 11 mission successfully achieved this historic lunar landing. Astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the moon's surface. This remarkable achievement represented a significant symbolic victory for the United States. The space race showcased how Cold War rivalry drove remarkable scientific and technological innovation.
Crisis points: Cuba and Berlin. In 1961, East Germany constructed the Berlin Wall, physically dividing East and West Berlin. This dramatic structure became a powerful symbol of Cold War division and oppression. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world dangerously close to nuclear war. The Soviet Union had secretly placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, dangerously close to American shores. President Kennedy demanded their removal, implementing a naval blockade around Cuba. For 13 tense days, the world watched as both superpowers approached the brink of conflict. Eventually, the Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles, averting potential nuclear catastrophe. In exchange, the United States secretly agreed to remove missiles from Turkey. This crisis highlighted the extraordinary dangers inherent in direct superpower confrontation. Both events remain iconic symbols of Cold War tension and its potential catastrophic consequences.
Détente and renewed tensions. During the 1970s, tensions between superpowers temporarily eased through a period called détente. Both nations pursued arms control agreements, limiting nuclear weapons stockpiles. The Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, known as SALT, produced significant diplomatic agreements. Trade and diplomatic relations between East and West modestly improved during this period. However, this relative calm proved temporary, as new conflicts soon reignited tensions. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, significantly escalating renewed hostility. The United States responded by supporting Afghan resistance fighters against Soviet forces. President Ronald Reagan adopted a notably more confrontational approach toward the Soviet Union. Reagan significantly increased American military spending, intensifying the ongoing arms race. This renewed tension marked a significant shift away from the earlier détente period.
The end of the Cold War and its legacy. By the mid-1980s, the Soviet Union faced severe economic struggles and internal political pressure. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced significant reforms known as glasnost and perestroika. These reforms aimed to modernize the struggling Soviet economy and increase political openness. However, these changes inadvertently accelerated political instability across Soviet territories. In 1989, the dramatic fall of the Berlin Wall symbolized the crumbling of communist authority. Eastern European nations rapidly abandoned communist governments, embracing democratic reforms. In 1991, the Soviet Union itself formally dissolved, ending 7 decades of communist rule.
This dramatic collapse marked the definitive end of the Cold War global standoff. The United States emerged as the world's dominant remaining superpower following this collapse. The Cold War's legacy continues shaping international politics, alliances, and global relations today.
Fought through proxy wars, space races, and the constant shadow of nuclear annihilation, the Cold War reshaped global politics for nearly half a century without a single direct battle between its two main rivals. Its legacy still echoes through international relations today. If you enjoyed this journey through the Cold War, subscribe for more pivotal moments in history, and let us know in the comments which era we should explore next.